Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today I'm going to be starting a horror novella reading vlog. It would be fun to try and challenge myself over a period of 48 hours to read all of the horror novellas that I currently have on my TBR, which includes these 6 books here. Most of these books are just around 100 pages or just under 100 pages, and then these other 2 are closer to 200 pages, so I think in total I'm trying to read about 800 pages in the next 2 days, which should be totally doable. I'll put an exact page count on the screen. Yeah, before we do jump into the reading vlog, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to today's video sponsor, which is HelloFresh. You've probably heard me gushing over HelloFresh because they are amazing, they are phenomenal, they are changing the game, because HelloFresh delivers fresh quality produce from the farm straight to your door within less than a week so that you can savor every last second of summer and all of the flavors. Getting back into the fall schedule and the fall routine can be very busy and chaotic, and so HelloFresh makes it so easy with their simple meals that have step-by-step instructions and take usually 30 minutes or less. You can also cut back on the grocery store runs because trust me, I am not a huge fan of the grocery store. It's so time consuming, it takes up so much of your day, and why go grocery shopping when you can have the exact amount of ingredients that you need to make something delivered right to your door, so you're not wasting anything. I think that's the hardest part about grocery shopping and trying to make dinner, is that you'll have to get like so much of one product and you're not going to use all of it, and then so much of it is going to go to waste. But with HelloFresh, they send you the perfect amount of just what you're going to need to make that particular item, and you don't have any leftover food waste, which is so amazing. HelloFresh is also up to 72% cheaper than going out and dining at a restaurant or just getting your regular grocery run. It's really nice too because HelloFresh also offers veggie, pescatarian, and fit and wholesome meals to make it easy to stick to your food goals. HelloFresh is the first carbon neutral meal kit company, and almost all of their packaging is recyclable as well. This afternoon, I was able to make this pork and zucchini bibimbap by myself, and it's so much fun to be able to cook by myself. I'm not much of a chef, you know, I'm really not, but every time I cook with the HelloFresh meals, the step-by-step instructions really help me to feel like I'm a freaking professional chef, you know, like I feel like I know what I'm doing because I do. And this was absolutely delicious and so easy to make. Like, I'm always surprised by how easy the meals actually are to make, and the freaking flavors. Oh my gosh, the flavor of this dish. This is another Korean dish that I've learned from HelloFresh that I am just obsessed with. Like, they have the best different kinds of dishes that I would have never even heard of. So I made this dish for me and my mom also really enjoyed it. She was really impressed by the flavors. We thought it might be a little bit too spicy for us, but it was actually just perfect. Like, it was so freaking good. So yeah, you can go to hellofresh.com and use my code gabbyreads16 for 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 surprise gifts. Isn't that wild? I know, that was a lot to process. Let me repeat myself. When you go to hellofresh.com, you can use my code gabbyreads16 to get 16 free meals across 7 boxes and also 3 free gifts. That is so exciting. So thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video, and genuinely, if you're on the fence, if you're like, I don't know, just try HelloFresh. I guarantee you're gonna love it. You're gonna enjoy it. It's amazing. Alright, so you might be asking yourself which 6 novellas I plan to read for this reading vlog over the next 48 hours. One of the books I plan to read is Petrified Women by Jeremy Ray. This is a novella that is only about like 90-ish pages, and it's so tiny. Isn't it just so tiny? And this one, all I really know is that it says some pranks go too far. This one could be deadly. That is all I know. I've been getting recommended this book time and time again, and so I'm just really excited to finally jump in and hear what it's all about. I'm also going to be reading Below by Laurel Hightower. This one, all I know is that it's about the Mothman. For some reason, I thought it was about vampires, and then so many people corrected me and were like, no, it's the Mothman. So this is about the Mothman. That's all I know. I'm also by Laurel Hightower. I'm also going to be reading her book Crossroads. This is another one that I'm so excited about. I've heard really good things. This one is also, I just hear this getting compared to Pet Sematary a lot, so naturally I'm really curious about it. I'm really excited because Pet Sematary is my favorite Stephen King book, and so I have some really high expectations for this one. You know, I think this one's going to be a good time. I'm also going to be reading Dear Laura. This one is also another short, little breezy, just over 100 200 pages horror novella. And this one sounds so creepy because it says it follows this young girl on her birthday. Every year she gets a letter from a stranger, and that stranger claims to know the whereabouts of her missing friend Bobby, but there's a catch. He'll only tell her what he knows in exchange for something personal. And I'm guessing the bitch gives him a tooth or something, I don't know, but this sounds wild. I'm also planning to read true crime. This one's about 143 pages, so it's a little bit on the longer side compared to some of these other ones, but this one sounds interesting because we follow this pair of siblings who has this very abusive mother, and so they kill their mom and then they go on a killing spree across the country. It sounds like it's gonna be a wild time. I know a few of my friends that have really enjoyed this one, so I'm looking forward to it. And then lastly, I'm gonna be reading Cirque Berserk. This one takes place in the summer of 1989 in Florida, and from what I understand, it involves a local carnival and it's a slasher. And so I don't know, this one is the longest one out of all of them. This one's about 170 pages, so this one's a little bit longer. So I'm probably gonna be starting with this one first because it's the longest one, so I want to bust out the longest book first. Yeah, these are the 6 books that I'm planning to read for this reading vlog. I'm very excited. I've been wanting to do this for a long time because I've just had so many horror novellas getting added to my TBR recently, and because I wanted to say thank you so much to anybody who sent me. Most of these got sent to me off of my Amazon wish list, so like thank you so much to everybody who sent me a book off my Amazon wish list. Like, you literally just made this video possible for me, so thank you. I repeat myself a lot, but I do think that horror books are my favorite genre to have short stories in, because I think horror is the only genre that it doesn't take a long story for it to be effective and scary, right? And really creepy. And so I am so excited to test my theory that I think horror novellas are fucking superior. And hopefully I find some new favorites in this group. Like, I don't know, I'm really excited about this batch of books right here, and I'm just so excited to jump in. So yeah, I'm going to be kicking off this 48-hour little mini readathon for myself at midnight tonight. So I'm very much looking forward to it and having you come along with me. Let's hope I find some new favorites, right? What's up? It's 10:30 in the morning, and I wanted to let you know that last night at midnight, when this readathon kicked off for me, I got 120 pages into Cirque Berserk, and so I only have like a little bit less than 50 pages left of this, but this book has been surprising so far because all I knew about it going in was that it was going to be a like 1980s slasher, or at least like that's all I really heard about it, so I didn't really know what to expect. But basically we're following this group of students who are all seniors in high school, and it takes place in 2019, and basically they're going to this place called Cirque Berserk, which is this carnival that was closed. So like this carnival was closed after the year of 1989 because these teenagers went around and started murdering people left and right, and then they killed themselves. And so people are saying that, you know, the carnival is haunted, or that the carnival, you know, like you go there and then you don't come out because people are still getting murdered, they're going missing, like creepy shit is happening, right? And so it's interesting though because this story kind of goes back and forth between 2019 and 1989, so we do get to see kind of like what actually happened in 1989 through the flashbacks, and it's just so creepy, and it's written so well that it's like so vivid with like the slasher vibes. But the 2019 parts, like there have been some surprising things about this book for me. Like I was expecting this to be like the typical kind of slasher, and to be honest, I wasn't sure if this would be my thing or not because in the past I haven't really had the best experiences with reading slashers. I usually find them and kind of boring. But this one is really interesting. Like, it just has a really cool element to it that I don't want to spoil for you, but it feels like a little bit more than just a typical slasher. Also, the beginning of this book was reminding me so much of the movie Haunt. If you've seen that movie, it was just very similar in vibes and like what was happening with like these teenagers just stumbling across this creepy ass place that they don't think they can trust it, and then it's like quickly turning into a slasher in a bad situation for all of them. And now at this point in the book, it's reminding me a bit of the movie Ready or Not. So, you know, take what you will with that, but like I am just kind of here for it. I don't know, I'm really loving it. At this point, I can see this book being a 4, maybe even a 4.5 stars. I was adding in tabs last night for anything that I found to be kind of like creepy or like unexpected or weird, and there's quite a bit of tabs, you know? I'm enjoying myself more than I thought I would with this one. So that's a lovely surprise. I almost don't want it to be over, and that's how you know it's like a really good sign. So right now it's about 10:30 in the morning, so I think I'm gonna try to make some breakfast real quick with my family, and then at noon today I'm doing some reading sprints on my Patreon. Hey, I am doing Patreon reading sprints right now, and I only have about 10 minutes left of this first sprint, but I wanted to let you know that I just finished reading Cirque Berserk, and this book was kind of unexpected, you know? I think it was a really fun time. I think I will say the ending did drop the ball just a little bit. Like, I don't know, it got a little cheese for me towards the end, but otherwise I had a really fun time reading this. I think I would give this 4 stars, and I definitely agree with what I said earlier about how it feels like Haunt meets Ready or Not or something like that in a way. Like, it just reminded me a lot of both of those things, and I just had a lot of fun with this one. Like, I don't know, I thought the characters were pretty interesting, and I thought the situations were pretty interesting. There was a lot of like gory violence in the way that you kind of want and expect from books like this, and I actually enjoyed this one a lot more than I was originally expecting to, so that's fantastic. I finally liked a slasher book. It happened. Anyways, I think next I'm going to jump into true crime, because this one is 143 pages and it's the next longest book that I'm trying to get through, so I would like to finish this one this afternoon while I'm on reading sprints, so let's jump right in. It is 3:40 in the afternoon and I'm still doing sprints on Patreon right now, but I wanted to let you know that I just finished reading True Crime. It was kind of fun earlier because a freaking random rainstorm and thunderstorm just came out of nowhere, and it was downpouring like during the sprints, which was really fun. But anyways, this book, I don't know how I feel about this, because this is like a, you know, it's a small town, you know, kind of like horror thriller story about these 2 siblings. So we have Susie and her brother Lim, and at the beginning of this book, we get to see their mother, who is just awful, like literally so awful, and it was so disturbing and disgusting to read about their mother. And so then this story is about how right at the beginning of this book, they both kill their mom, and then they kind of go on this like cross-country killing spree. Like, that's kind of what it's about. It's very like Bonnie and Clyde, except for the fact that they're siblings. At the beginning of this book, I was kind of into it, you know, because I was like, I am so disturbed and disgusted by their mom's behavior that I was like wanting her to get killed, you know. I was like, fucking do it. That is gross. That is disgusting. That is inhumane. What mother could ever do that to their child? Like, it was just so horrific to read. And I feel like, I don't know, like around the halfway point of this book, I feel like something happened in the plot where the story felt like it kind of changed, and then I wasn't as invested in the second half as I was in the first half. But I don't know, I feel like this book it's one of those books where I don't really know how I feel about it or what I'm supposed to take from this, because it was just a really difficult read because of, you know, not only the graphic violence, but like there's so much like sexism from the men in this book. They're so like misogynistic, and it's disgusting and hard to read, and there's so much like sexual violence, sexual assault against this young girl, and there's like animal cruelty, and there's just a lot of, you know, graphic gory violence against these people that they're killing as well. And it's just, I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from this, you know, like I don't know if this is supposed to leave me with some kind of message at the end of like, you know, how weird and bizarre it is, how people are so obsessed with true crime. Like, I feel like that's the overall message that I'm supposed to take from this, but at the same time, like, I just don't know how I feel about it. Like, I didn't love it, and I don't feel like I would want to read any more of this. Like, I'm glad that it's over. I almost felt like it was a little bit too long, which is weird because it's only 143 pages, but it was just fine. I'm debating between giving this like a 2 and a 3 star. I don't know, it just didn't do it for me the way it seems to be doing it for a lot of other people. Like, I'm seeing this book getting pretty, you know, decent reviews. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll have to sit on it more, but like, for right now, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. But I think I'm gonna start Dear Laura, and then I think I'm gonna try to figure out what's for dinner and what we're doing for food after that. Cutie. Look at a cute little Freenie. Hello, it's been a minute since I last updated you. I had a really great night. We went out to dinner at Five Guys, and it's been so long since we've been to Five Guys, so it was freaking delicious. And I'm excited to let you know that I finished reading Dear Laura. I actually started this book before we went out to dinner, and I got about halfway through, and then I just finished the last half when we got home. I also watched Big Brother and 2 episodes of F-Boy Island, so you know, there was a lot of TV happening tonight. Oh my gosh, this book, where do I even begin? I think, okay, this is gonna sound really harsh, but I think I have to give this book 1 star, and I think it's genuinely maybe my least favorite book that I've read this year, and I've read some shitty books. Okay? Okay, so basically the premise of this book, we're following this woman named Laura, and she is best friends with this guy named Bobby when she's like a kid, you know? And then when she's around 13 years old, her best friend Bobby, who she's like newly in a relationship with now, like they're having a romance, he gets abducted by some man. And so now we're literally following her 30 years later. Okay, we're talking 30 years. This woman is now 44 years old. And every year since Bobby has gone missing, she's been getting like mysterious letters but from this person that calls themselves X. Like, they just sign it X. She doesn't know who they are, and they're telling her that they know what happened to Bobby and that they are like responsible for what happened to Bobby, and if she wants a clue about where he could be, then she has to exchange something personal. Okay, and as you can see on the cover here, things get a little intense with what this person is requesting from her. And so, you know, it starts off harmless enough, right, with this person requesting a pair of her used panties, and then it gets more and more intense, like the things get more disturbing that this person is requesting in return for like clues to what happened to Bobby. And there are a number of things in this book that just really piss me off and that I don't understand. I mean, for one, the writing just isn't very good. I just wasn't a huge fan of the writing. I thought it was written in a very basic and generic kind of writing style where I never really felt like I connected to anyone in this book. And then also, something that I really truly don't understand is how this all happened when she was 13 years old, okay? Like, we're talking, I guess he was her best friend, and then they had the start of a romance, but I'm like, 30 fucking years? Like, this is going on for 30 years. Like, you're 44, you're a whole grown-ass adult. Like, this happened a lifetime ago. Like, I couldn't even tell you shit that happened when I was 13 years old. And I just find it hard to believe that this would go on for such a long time. Like, I just feel like you really have to suspend your disbelief on this one. And also, I'm just so annoyed at this protagonist, like Laura, girl. It's like she doesn't even try to figure out who this X person even is, because like that whole situation at the beginning that I said he wanted a pair of her used panties, he said to leave them in like a plastic bag on the front porch of her house. And then he, like the next morning, she came down and saw that they were gone and there was a note left for her there. And I'm like, on the front porch of her own house, and she's not like sitting up by the window trying to look and see who it is, or like setting up a fucking camera. Like, I don't know, it doesn't really say what year, you know, this story took place in. So it could have been, you know, in the 80s or the 90s, or I don't know, some time before where maybe they didn't have cameras as easily or whatever. But like, what the fuck? It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, she's not even trying to figure out who this X person is. And there's like a few moments where they like nearly kind of cross paths, and it's like she just, I don't know, it was so frustrating. It's like she doesn't even try to figure out the identity of this person, or she just doesn't care. All she cares about is finding her friend Bobby. But it's annoying too, because right at the start of this book, like almost right away in one of their first exchanges, he lets her know something about Bobby that I'm like, okay, if that's the case, then why even bother anymore? Like, what's the fucking point? And the whole time I was reading this book, I was like, why? What's the fucking point? What are you doing? Like, it just all felt so ridiculous, kind of. It just felt really ridiculous. And then the ending was super underwhelming and just like, what the fuck is the point? Like, what? Maybe it is supposed to be kind of scary because he's like anonymous and we don't know who it is, and he could be anybody, I guess. But for some reason, I did not find this scary at all. Like, there was not one moment where I was like, ooh, that's intense. Like, this was all so fucking boring, so repetitive. I was like, oh my god, just get to the point. Like, every chapter was just like, she's afraid and she misses Bobby and she'll do anything to figure out where he is. And I'm like, okay, she's doing all of this shit over a period of years. Like, we're talking nearly every year for 30 years that she's like had this letter exchange thing happening with this guy, and like, what is he giving her the clues for? Like, she still doesn't know anything. I'm just kind of surprised and shocked because, you know, the premise of this book, it sounded interesting, you know, with the whole like, oh, somebody's sending her these letters and she has to exchange something personal. I was just thinking this would get a lot, like, I don't know, darker and more interesting than it did. And with so many of my friends, you know, I see a lot of my friends on Goodreads giving this like 5 stars or 4 stars and saying it's definitely a creepy kind of thriller, like they were on the edge of their seat the whole time, and like, I just did not get this. I don't get it. I didn't get it at all. Like, I was very bored throughout this whole thing. I was frustrated with Laura. I just kept thinking, Laura, like, what are you doing? It's almost one of those things where I almost wish I didn't waste my time, but thankfully this book is only about like 118 pages, so it's not a complete and total waste of time. But I do think this is one of my least favorite books that I've ever read. So yeah, sorry for the rant. Today went okay. You know, with these first 3 books, I'm actually kind of surprised that Cirque Berserk is my favorite thing that I've read so far for this reading vlog, just because this is one that I didn't think I would like, if I'm being honest, because, you know, as I said, slashers have not been my thing in the past when it comes to books. But yeah, I think that is going to wrap up the first 24 hours, and tomorrow I'm going to be reading these 3, which, you know, I am pretty excited for these 3 books. Like, I'm kind of glad that I'm saving these 3 for the last 3, because I have the highest hopes for these 3 for some reason. Like, I don't really know about Below. I don't know what to expect with this one, so my expectations are going to be mid going into this one. But for both of these, I actually do have some pretty high expectations, and I really do think I could have a 5-star with either of these. So like, hoping for the best tomorrow. I think tomorrow, first thing in the morning, it would be really fun to read one of these books at one of my local coffee shops. Hello, how's it going? It's about 12:45 in the afternoon now. I kind of had a late start to my day. I didn't get to the coffee shop until a little bit after 11, but I wanted to let you know that while I was in the coffee shop, I read the entirety of Below, and this book was, you know, pretty interesting. This one, we're following this woman named Addie, and she's recently divorced, and she's driving through these mountains in, like, what is it, West Virginia, and there's like a late night snowstorm, and she meets this guy named Matt, ads, and something terrible happens. She feels like this immediate kind of like connection with this guy, and then something terrible happens where he gets into this really bad accident, and it turns into a situation where she's gonna be, you know, trying to save him because they're alone together out in this snowstorm, and she just felt this immediate like bond with this stranger. And then of course while they're out there, something spooky is kind of just like stalking them in the shadows. Like, you know, this is kind of based off the Mothman, I guess, which I've never read anything involving the Mothman before, so this was like my first experience with this creature. And this book was good, you know. I feel like this author's writing style was really good, which makes me happy because I have another book that I'm reading by this author for this video, so I do really like her writing style. And I did immediately feel connected with the characters, even though I was kind of like frustrated with our protagonist, because I'm like, okay, why would you literally go around risking your life for some guy that you literally just met? Like, you don't even know this man, and you're gonna go to extreme lengths to try and save him. Like, I just didn't really buy into that entirely, but I was still kind of, you know, on board for this like kind of, you know, creepy, spooky story. It was very atmospheric, and I really loved the, you know, the way the creature would just kind of like pop in and pop out, and she thought she might be seeing things, and it was like, you know, it was written in a way where it was really, you know, creepy and really effective. However, I will say the last 30 pages, I thought it was starting to get so repetitive. Like, I was just like, okay, like, let's go. And then the ending was pretty underwhelming, so like I wasn't a huge fan of the ending of this book. But for a while there, you know, like during the story, I thought there were some fun little, you know, unexpected twists and reveals along the way. So I feel like this one's kind of a mid book for me. I think I'm gonna end up giving this one a 3 out of 5 because I still think this might be something that I'd recommend if you're looking for something kind of creepy with like a creature and like, you know, the snowstorm atmosphere. It was very atmospheric. However, I do find it a little bit cheesy because, you know, our main protagonist, like, not only is she risking it all, like literally risking it all for a man that she doesn't really know, but also there's a lot of moments in this book where she's like talking to her ex-husband in her head. It's like this exchange of dialogue because her ex-husband always made her feel like shit and like she didn't have a voice, and so she's trying to like prove that she can like do things on her own and that she like has her own voice, which, you know, I like the message of, but the execution wasn't always my favorite of her like having these conversations with her ex-husband in her head. Like, that's part of the reason why it got so repetitive to me, especially towards the end. I felt like it was just like one obstacle after another, and then her husband being like, you can't do this, just give up, and then her being like, no, I can. And so it was a little cheesy at times, you know, a little bit repetitive towards the end, but I don't know, I didn't mind this. I enjoyed it. I'm actually really excited now to read Crossroads by this author because I do like the writing style, and I think out of all of the books that I've read so far for this video, I think this author has the best writing style, at least in my opinion. This is the best writing that I've read, so that makes me happy. Anyways, I am on my way back home to read one of these books next. Now I'm feeling like I want to read Crossroads next just because I really do like this author's writing style, and I'm saving my most highly anticipated 2 for the last 2, so let's hope one of these can be 5 stars because this video is not going as well as I had hoped. Face that wasn't even close to mine. I know I shouldn't be in love, but it's so hard to move on. You haven't changed, you stayed the same. But if you did, I'd still love you anyway. Give you the world like I promised I would, even though you wouldn't do the same. I'd give you the world like I promised I would. Hello, it is now 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just finished reading Crossroads by Laurel Hightower seconds ago, and I was kind of worried for a minute, you know, because it took me a minute to get into this book. I feel like this is one of those books where for the first, you know, 10 pages or so, it took me like 30 minutes to read the first 10 pages. Like, I don't know why, I just kept getting distracted. I like struggled to get into it at the beginning of this book, you know? And this story, all I had really heard about it was that it had Pet Sematary vibes, and so I just kind of went into this book only knowing that, and I didn't really read any of the premise. But basically in this book, we're following this mother named Chris, who she has recently lost her son Trey, who got into this really bad car accident and he died when he was 22 years old. And now it's been about 2 years or so since he's died, and she is grieving very heavily, and she doesn't even recognize, you know, her own life anymore. And then, this isn't a spoiler because it does talk about this in the premise of the book, but it says, a drop of blood falls from Chris's hand onto her son's roadside memorial, and then later that night, Chris thinks she sees his ghost outside her window. And she doesn't know if it's actually her son or if it's something evil. And so I can definitely see the Pet Sematary theme and vibes happening in this book. And honestly, holy fuck. This was a 5-star book for me. I absolutely love this. Like, not gonna lie, as I said in the beginning, it did take me a second to get into it, but once I was into it, I was fucking into it. And I will warn you though, there are some brutal self-harm scenes in this book because, oh my god, I mean, as you can imagine, you know, when she finds out that her own blood as like a sacrifice where her son died can bring her son back for the night, it only gets more, you know, intense for her body as the story progresses. And so some of the self-harm in this book like genuinely made me like queasy and like feel like I was getting sick to my stomach because I was like, oh my god, it was disgusting and like really hard to read. So if you're at all sensitive to self-harm trigger warnings, then I don't think I would recommend this, because honestly, like, self-harm is one of my personal triggers that's just really hard to read about because it makes me really squeamish, and this had so much of that. So it was definitely a really hard read, and I just want to warn you about those things because I was not really expecting that, and I was like, oh my god, it was tough. But at the same time, I feel like this book was just written so well. This book is exactly the perfect length. Like, this is how you do a horror novella. This is exactly the reason why I think horror works so well in short novella format, because this story was perfect. It was the perfect length. It had characters that felt so fleshed out and so real, and, you know, Chris's problems had felt so realistic, and, you know, especially even when she talks about her issues with infertility and how hard it was for her to even have her son in the first place. You know, that really touched me because, you know, my mom also dealt with infertility before she had me, and infertility has always been such a part of my, you know, life and upbringing. And so that aspect of the book really touched me to the point where I almost cried at the end of this book. Like, it was beautiful and it was so well done. But then the horror elements of this book were also just so well done, because not only were, you know, obviously the self-harm scenes were so horrifying to read about, obviously, like, those things were hard, but then also the ending of this book was fucking chef's kiss, perfect ending. And I'm just so impressed by this story, you know. I feel like this is one of those books where it really shows, like, how far is a parent willing to go to, you know, protect their child or to save their child, or, you know, when a parent is dealing with the unimaginable grief of losing their own child, like, how extreme and like how intense of things they would do in order to get that child back, you know? It definitely reminds me a lot of Pet Sematary, but this one I feel like was especially unique because it was like this mother and son bond, and it was just, god, it was such a tough read, and like just such a beautiful story, but also just a tough and horrific story at the same time. I feel like this is one of those horror novels that really touches on real life horror, you know, like real life fears, like a parent losing their own child. That is like some real life horrific shit, you know? But I also love how it blended that like real life horror with just a touch of like, is this something evil? Is something more going on? Like, I just, oh my god, I loved it. The vibes were immaculate, 10 out of 10, and I would highly recommend, but just do be warned that there is some descriptive, graphic, violent, self-harm type of shit in here that was not easy to read, but wow, what an incredible read. I'm gonna be thinking about this book for a long time, and I'm so glad that it did live up to those expectations that I had for it, because, So yeah, if you liked Pet Sematary, definitely check this one out. I think it's definitely the same kind of vibes and will give you the same feeling that Pet Sematary gave to me. And right now it's just after 3 o'clock, and me and Rachel have plans to go to the movies with my friend Josh tonight, and we're going to be seeing the new Bullet Train movie with Brad Pitt. So we're probably going to be getting ready to leave in about 20 minutes to go and see the movie. So the plan for tonight is to go and see this movie, probably get some dinner afterwards, and then when I get home, I'm going to read Petrified Women, which is fantastic fantastic, you know, because this is actually the shortest book that I'm reading for this video. This one is only 90 pages, so I don't imagine it'll take me too long tonight to finish this. So that's awesome. But anyways, let's go to the movies and hopefully Bullet Train is good. Ooh, yum, yes. How is Bullet Train?
It's funny.
It's good. I am surprised by how good Bullet Train was. It was so fun! Wanted to do a quick update because it's about 10:40 at night right now, so I'm coming up on my last hour of this 48-hour little readathon that I'm doing. But I wanted to update you because I wanted to let you know my thoughts on Bullet Train. I actually thought it was a really fun movie. Like, I thought it was so good. I don't know why. I guess I was going in with some lower expectations because I thought it might be one of those movies where they show everything in the trailer, and then I just thought it would be one of those like kind of forgettable summer action movies, you know. But I don't know, I genuinely had so much fun with it. It was a lot more gory and graphically violent than I was anticipating, but like that's not necessarily a bad thing. I also just thought the way the story was told was very interesting. Like, there was never a dull moment, and I loved all of the cast in it. There were even a fun couple of celebrity cameos like in the movie that I wasn't expecting, that like the whole crowd was like cheering. It was so much fun, and I don't know, I genuinely thought it was a really good time. Like, it was a really interesting movie. Like, there was a few plot twists that I didn't see coming, and it was a fun time. Like, I would definitely watch it again. I think it's one of the more solid blockbuster kind of movies that I've seen this year, so I was very pleasantly surprised. And then after that, we ended up going to Mod to get some pizza with Josh and just hang out. I had a Caesar salad too. It was delish. And then when I got home, I started reading Petrified Women, and I'm currently now at the halfway point. I'm about 50 pages in, so I guess I'm a little bit more than halfway through it now. But this book is fucking wild. Like, what the fuck am I reading right now? This book is kind of cool because, well, for one, I love that it starts with a content warning. You know, I appreciate whenever books have a content warning at the beginning of them, because then you know what you're getting yourself into. And with this book, there are a lot of content warnings. For example, sexual assault is a big one, violence, body horror, and strong language. So like, I appreciate the content warning. I also love that at the beginning of this, this author says, growing up, I was a big fan of how Pixar would put shorts in front of their features to set the tone and amp up the main event. And so he includes a micro story at the beginning of his story that's kind of like a short before the main event. And it's so cool. Like, the micro story is just this tiny little paragraph right here, but it was actually really good. Like, I really enjoyed the micro story. I thought it was very effective and short and just really cool. So in this story, we're following this couple. Our protagonist is named Harley, and then she has this boyfriend named Aiden. Aiden is this guy who is just really into pranks. Okay, very weird, right? He's like really into pranking people, and right on their first date, he's like, have you ever seen Scare Tactics? Which, like, oh my gosh, Scare Tactics is like my dad's favorite fucking show, like, for sure. So I've seen a lot of Scare Tactics, and I know Scare Tactics is always known for kind of like pushing the limits with pranks and like really scaring people, you know? So right at the start of this book, you know, she is going to be like, Harley is planning to prank Aiden for his birthday, and she's like wanting to get him back because he's pranked her so many times now, and we kind of get to see in flashbacks like the different pranks that he's done on her over the years, and some of them are like, god damn, like that's a little far, you know, like that's brutal. And so she's planning something really big to prank him back because she wants to get on their leaderboard, so to speak. She's like 8th on their leaderboard of like the best pranks they've done on each other, and he has the top 7 and she only has 1 on the leaderboard. And so she's trying to get that like number 1 spot of like pranking him, and then things go unexpected during this prank. That's all I can say, because this book is only 90 pages long, okay? So I only have a tiny bit left. I'm halfway through it. This shit is wild. This is crazy. I don't even know what I'm reading right now, and I'm loving it so much. Like, I feel like I'm holding my breath the entire time that I'm reading it, and literally, you know, I started this book right before we watched Big Brother tonight, and then my mom and my sister were like, okay, let's watch Big Brother, and I was like, yeah, okay, yep, 1 second. Like, I could not pull my eyes away from this book because I just had to know what was happening next. And it's hard to read this in a way because there are no chapters. It's just all text, but at the same time, the story's so short that it's like, does it really need chapter breaks? Not really, but it's just so intense. Like, oh my god, my heart is like racing. Like, I was literally holding my breath during some of the scenes that I was just reading right now. Like, oh my god. So yeah, I'm gonna finish these last 40 pages and then I will let you know my final thoughts on this one, and I will do kind of like a ranking of all the books that I read for this video. So very exciting. I just finished reading Petrified Women and like, bitch, what the fuck? This ended up being a lot more creepy than I was anticipating, especially in those last like 20 pages or so. I was terrified. I was like, what the fuck is going on? The only issue that I have with this book is the main character is kind of not like dumb. Okay, she's not dumb, but like she just makes a decision at one point in this book where I'm like, girl, what are you doing? And so that was my only kind of like issue with this book, is it felt very convenient. Like the decision that she made at one point in the book, it just felt very convenient to the plot, if you know what I'm saying. Like I was like, are you kidding me? Like that would not happen. But otherwise, I had a really great time with this one, and I actually feel like this book was the most creepy for me, especially towards the end. Oh my god, it was some freaky ass shit. I mean, this book definitely had one of the creepiest covers out of everything I was reading this week, but for some reason I was not expecting it to get that creepy. So I feel like this one, it's gotta be like a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. I don't think it's a solid 5 stars just because of the tiny little like nitpick issue that I had with it, but otherwise I think this was a freaking blast. You know, do keep in mind that those content warnings are there for a reason. Like there is some very triggering sexual assault kind of things happening in this book, and it was not very easy to read, but at the same time, like my eyes were freaking glued to this. Like this is definitely the kind of book that you can finish in one sitting, not just because it's so short, you know, with it only being 90 pages, but also because you're just gonna be glued to it. Like you cannot peel your eyes away from the horrific things happening in this book. Like it's just so fascinating. And so yeah, that is a wrap on this video with these 6 novellas. I thought it would be fun to rank them and then also give some superlatives, if you will, because if I had to rank them, I think Crossroads would be my number 1. I don't think anything compares to this book for me. Like this book has been on my mind all day since I've read it, and I was telling my mom the plot of this book tonight and I almost cried while I was trying to explain what this book is about. So it really impacted me and is just a really wonderful book. I think in second place I would put Petrified Women, because what the fuck, this shit is probably gonna give me nightmares. Like this shit is gonna stay on my brain too. And then in third place I would put Cirque Berserk, which is actually a little bit surprising for me because this is the one that definitely surprised me the most. It was one that I wasn't even sure if this would be my thing or not, and I ended up really loving it, so that's always great. And then I have below in fourth place True Crime in fifth place. I didn't love this one as much as I wanted to. And then Dear Laura, no surprises here, is in last place because this is one of my least favorite books that I've read this year. One of the superlatives that I wanted to mention was the book that made me the most uncomfortable to read, and I honestly think that True Crime made me the most uncomfortable out of all of the books that I read for this video, because it had to do with like the mother and the relationship that the mother had with her 2 kids in this book. Like this book just made me so fucking uncomfortable and disturbed. Like I was just like, ew, what the fuck. So like this definitely made me the most uncomfortable. And then I also thought I would give a superlative for like the most unique thing that I read this week, and I feel like it's got to be a tie between these two as like one of the most unique things that I've ever read, and kind of like something that's a little bit surprising. Like these books both surprised me. There were elements to this story that I wasn't really anticipating, and I feel like both of these books are a lot more than what you might think they are. You know, like they're a lot more than just the premise that I pitched to you. And then the last superlative that I have is which one would I like to see adapted the most into a movie, or which one do I think would make the best maybe like short TV episode, or maybe like a short film. I actually think that Below would make a really interesting movie. Like this would actually be some really creepy shit. I also think Cirque Berserk would make for a really fun kind of like slasher carnival movie. I think mainly because of the carnival vibes, this would be like a fantastic movie. So yeah, that is a full wrap of this video. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these novellas. Let me know what you think of them, and let me know if you plan to read any of these books now. Like let me know if I've convinced you to check any of these out. And also I would love love to know any horror novella recommendations that you might have if you're a fan of them, and if you think that I might like something that you've read that I have not read. I would love to know if you can just leave me a comment. Horror novellas are one of my favorite genres and favorite things, and so I'm always looking for more recommendations. So if you have any, please leave them down below. I will be looking through the comments and checking them out. So thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.